let's go straight in. Obviously, we're going to speak about a lot of open source stuff. No dates guaranteed anywhere along the line here. If you're not familiar with the office hours, it's really to give you a chance to ask us questions, but we do have a little bit of a sort of icebreaker theme. And this month, we're going to talk a little bit about the upcoming 3.1 release of the node-oracledb driver. Zoom has the chat icons, which you can find there either under the chat bubble, or it'll be hidden in the more menu, depending on your screen width. And you can talk at an appropriate time too if you want to ask questions. So who are we? Well, Dan McGann is actually not on the call, and we should give him congratulations on the birth of a child into the household. He's on paternity leave at the moment. Anthony Tuaninga is one of the key maintainers here of Oracle database drivers, particularly CX Oracle for Python, and does a lot of work with the node-oracledb driver. Other bits and pieces, a lot of data access layer stuff in the data access group. I also work in the data access group. I'm Christopher Jones, and I'm the product manager, so I get to do all of the sort of loose odds bits and pieces to keep the group running. And Blaine Carter's one of our evangelists in the open source space, does a lot of interesting things at conferences, from hardware to Internet of Things to Python as well, and has run the Python hands-on labs and things like that. So we're all sort of in this open source space along with you. And Python, I keep mentioning, we'll probably keep mentioning, because its driver does similar things to the node-oracledb driver, and we try and keep them in sync, and we're trying to get the node driver up to the level of the Python driver. So icebreaker theme towards node-oracledb 3.1. So people who have been following on GitHub will have seen that I've been doing a few pushes every now and again into the master branch. We don't have a release out, release out. There's no binaries for download, but you can obviously download and build the source code from GitHub if you want. The installation instructions are, I think, relatively clear. And I'm just going to run through these really quickly because I'm sure we want to spend some more time on them when we actually do the final release. So the first thing is this deferred initialization of the Oracle client stack. So the Oracle client stack is all the proprietary libraries. You often get that as part of instant client. You may have it as a full client, or the Oracle database libraries if you have a database on the same machine as node-oracledb. In 3.0, what you have currently, that initialization occurs when you do the require oracledb. And if those client libraries are not found, an error will be thrown. Now, that's kind of good and bad. It lets you have a real status check. Is my application going to work, yes or no? But there are a couple of cases where users wanted to defer that. And the changelog, if you go and look at the changelog in GitHub, you can see some of the rationale there, links to people have asked for that. So what's going to happen in 3.1 is that require oracledb will always work. It's effectively almost like a no-op. When I say always work, it still needs to find the JavaScript library, so you still need to have oracledb installed. But it's only when you start accessing the connection, when you do a create connection pool, when you do a get connection for a standalone connection, or when you try and get some of the Oracle attributes like the client version number. You obviously have to go down into load the Oracle client to get the client version number. It's only at that point that we'll actually go and try and open the Oracle client libraries. And certainly for the two connection calls, the create pool and the get connection, if the client library can't be opened, then yes, you will get an error, but it'll come back through the callback. And I'm just looking here at the Zoom chat, and somebody's saying no sound, and I think we do have sound, right?
I'm sending messages. I'm trying to work that out with David.
Okay. So Blaine has that under control. I can speak a little louder if that helps. Wake up the household here early in the morning in Australia. So deferred initialization also lets you do some things which we don't really recommend, but people always do, so I'm not going to be able to stop you anymore. And that is, you'll be able to set some of the Oracle environment variables a little later in the script, Oracle client environment variables like NLS-lang. You'll be able to actually set those in your script after the require, but certainly if they appear after connection is called, they're not going to have any effect whatsoever. So I don't like just telling people to set environment variables in scripts because it's kind of error prone, timing related, but people do it. And at least it'll be a little bit more fail safe, a little safer now. Next thing on the list, which is checked in, is just one little change there, support for a combination of a user proxy with external authentication in standalone connection. So we did a little bit of a review of this, prompted by a user who had an issue there with trying to use a pool with proxy authentication and a user proxy and external authentication. And it turns out his problem was fixed in the Oracle client layer, but we had a bug in the node-oracledb layer for the standalone connection, so we kind of fixed that. And tidied up a few bits and pieces along the way. One particular case where we thought should have been handled with an error message now actually gives you an error message, whereas before it gave you what I would have defined as sort of unexpected behavior. Changelog has all those details. Anthony pushed in some changes into our data access layer earlier this week or end of last week. To support XML type and queries. Now, XML types are kind of odd little thing there. We don't have in the C layer into the Oracle database client full what we'd want in the driver land support for accessing it in the ways that we might want to access it. There is support, but it's not where we'd like it to be. You can now use XML type and queries. Previously, you had to actually change your SQL statements and wrap it with a to-clob to return it as a lob. But if you have an XML type column, now it'll just come back as a string into node-oracledb and, as I've mentioned before, into Python as well. Soda, that was that big new feature we pushed out with 3.0. So we've continued along with some of the work there in terms of stabilizing that and miscellaneous fixes. So please go and pull that code, master, compile it, test it, let us know how it's all working for you, any issues, etc., etc., etc. And this is, important for us to get your feedback on how it's all working. So the big question I wanted to ask everybody here is, should we change how we do the installs? So node-oracledb is built with a little bit of a binary. So there's some C code because it has to call into the Oracle client layer, which is the C code, which does all of the work. So we have binaries, and we release binaries for some common platforms and for current versions of Node. Combination of currently 12, 4 versions plus 3 platforms by 3 platforms. And the current installer in 3.01, as you can see at the top there, downloads JavaScript library from npm.npmjs.com, and downloader script gets run, and that determines what kind of binary you want, what platform, what version of Node you're running on, and tries to download a binary from GitHub. And it's this second stage, which is a little problematic for a few people because they have business issues, business requirements where they're not actually allowed to access GitHub, shock horror, or they got some kind of proxy firewall which needs something special which our downloader script doesn't cope with. And so it's a little problematic there for a handful of people, handful of environments. So one thing we could do is to actually put all of those binaries in the npm package. So your npm install would just download this one Uber package which had everything needed in it for everyone. And we still have that little install time script that's going to actually put the correct binary in the correct location as needed by the JavaScript files when it tries to load the module. And then we prune all of the unnecessary binaries. If you're on Mac, then we delete all the Windows and the Linux binaries. So we didn't do this first up for a couple of reasons. We didn't do this in the past for a couple of reasons. One is this size reason, and the other is that we thought we might want to be more flexible and we could just stick extra binaries as they came along and stick them on GitHub. If there was a new version of Node, if there's a new version of Node, we would just stick the new version of Node binaries on GitHub for the current version of node-oracledb. We've kind of gone away from that in terms of error checking and trying to give nice messages and saying, hey, we don't have a version of node-oracledb binary for your particular version of Node. And so that reason's kind of gone. We now know for a particular version of Node which versions of we know for a particular version of node-oracledb which versions of Node.js it's going to work with. And the size issue may or may not be a problem for you. So that's really, I guess, where the question is, and that's why the question mark's up there in the title. Should we include all of those binaries in that one package, which is going to blow out that download size to about 3.5 megabytes, compared with, say, a total of about 500K. So it's going to be about 7 times bigger just for the download, but it's still order of megabytes, not gigabytes. And note, it still doesn't have any Oracle client libraries. It's still you're still going to need the Oracle client separately. This is just the node-oracledb bits we're talking about here. So open question, vote, yes, no. Even one person's comment on the chat would help. If you just say yes, do it, might make life easier, or no, hey, that space is, that download bandwidth cost is really important for me. I'm on a slow network. So I really do need your feedback. You can obviously put it here in the chat. You can email me. My details are in my GitHub page, or you can find me on Twitter, the link I gave before. So this is the open question. And we've got this kind of technology, been rewriting the install scripts a little bit just to make sure that it works and it all looks good. And so it's really just this matter of, is this size issue going to be a problem for people? And as part of this, by the way, we're probably thinking of getting rid of the source code, which is currently included in the NPM package, which will save us another megabyte or so of the actual installed footprint. Because I don't think people are actually using the source code from the NPM package. It's possible, but it's not so straightforward. So that's a sort of a second part to the question: should we or should we not get rid of that source code? Are people still using it? So yell out. Don't wait for me to stop talking. And then I guess the big question everybody else wants to know is, what else for Node? When is 3.1? When is it going to come out? Really, we haven't started work on other features yet. We are thinking it'd be nice to have that object binding support there, but I'm really not sure that we can kind of guarantee it. That's actually a relatively big project, particularly for testing, because there's a lot of combinations there of binding in, binding out, types, PL/SQL types, load testing, etc. And if we want to get 3.1 out, sometime early next year, because I know end of year period's kind of coming up, things are going to get a little bit busy for everybody. I don't really want to commit to anything particular for Node 3.1, but again, question mark, what else do you want? So if you want to stick things on chat or call out when we have the open mic session at the end, please just let us know. And that's it. That's the icebreaker session. It's now over to you. I've warmed you up, primed you up with a few things you can talk about, or you can talk about anything else that you want to chat about and ask us the hard questions, give us praise. Giving praise, by the way, publicly is really useful for us, just so that we know people are actually using the driver and what they're doing with it, and they're doing some good stuff. It kind of energizes us, lets us get resources internally when we show our management chain how everybody's enjoying it. And so over to you. Otherwise, we'll just sit here for a while and just wait for the end of the half hour or so to occur. Typical use cases. Okay, so a question on the chat. Thanks very much for asking that. What would be the typical use case to use a driver? Currently, I use Node.js to do WebSocket connections and send push notifications from the database to the browser. That sounds like a great use case. We have had demos around. I know Dan McGann has done a talk showing exactly that using node-oracledb with the continuous query notification feature, which means that when data changes in the database, there's a callback and a Node.js method will run. And then that method can obviously do a WebSocket push back to the browser. So he's got a nice little demo there, which you can find YouTube videos of if you search for Dan McGann and his real-time web communications video. So you could do that with node-oracledb. We've seen people do data pumping. A lot of people use big data transfers in and out. So we've seen people do that. Can you have a WebSocket connection to the DB? I forget, actually, to be honest. I forget whether the network layer can do that. I don't think it can in the Oracle Network Listener, but that's kind of out of my domain, to be honest. Sorry, that was another question.
With the orgs.
Could you repeat that, Blaine?
I can say that you cannot do that using Oracle REST data services for orgs. So
yeah,
I would assume that it would be the same answer for Apex, but there's slight differences there, so I'm not positive.
Yeah. More use cases for the driver. A lot of web services. Seen somebody use it to do a large number, order of billions kinds of operations in the database, queries against the database. So they use it as a web service just to field I guess, questions to the database, arbitrary statements, I guess, more than just a fixed web service. So all sorts of use cases are here for the driver. Any more questions? Let me just go back to contact details. So you've got those. Oh, actually, no, I think I have one extra slide. There you go. Okay, so extra resources. Don't forget, we've got a Facebook page out there if you're a Facebook person. Office Hours, I think you know where that is. And you can follow along the blog, or oh, Blaine, I've kind of forgotten you on the Twitter there. Apologies.
That's okay.
So if there are no more questions, I'm going to wrap up, and we'll call it a day and make this video available online on YouTube if you want to refer anybody to it. And thank you. I see a few thanks coming in. A couple of private messages and public messages. Do appreciate that. And we'll talk to you next month. Please keep communication high. Just let us know what you are doing, and let us know what you want. It's a user-driven community, and we thank you for being part of it. Thank you, everyone.